to part 2 of Latitude and Longitude, and then we're also going to do a introduction to airspace and VFR sectional charts and how to read them. So this segment is going to focus on reading latitude and longitude based on what our previous video was. This time we'll do it on an actual chart, which you can see is much busier than what our board demonstration was a few minutes ago. So this is also going to, as we move along, get us into reading charts in general and what the airspace is that's predicted on some of these, or depicted on some of these charts. So it's busy. Don't get confused. We'll get into it and we'll break it down for you. As you can see here on this entire wall, on this board, is an entire chart. I would highly recommend that you go out and find a chart and buy one so that you've got one in front of you. It's much easier to understand once you've had a full chart in front of you, where to look for things and how to manipulate the chart and how to read it, than it is by doing it in just segments, which is what you're going to get in some of your study guides. So first, we're going to do some latitude and longitude, and we'll show you how to do it here. And then we're going to zoom in on some specific areas, and we're going to show you how to read that along with the airspace that's contained there. So a quick short review of what we did on the board earlier. Now let's look at an actual chart. So as we talked about and you saw written, you're going to see down here along these lines, these are latitude lines, and then latitude up and down, north and south, longitude east and west. So as you can see down here, you've got 79 degrees. Remember, every 30 minutes was a 30-minute line. So 79 degrees, 30 minutes, 80 degrees. Okay, so let's pick a spot. Out here in the middle of nowhere, out here in the Atlantic. So we're going to say, we're going to pick a spot right there where that blue dot is. So to read that, we're going to look here. We're going to say, okay, let's get our latitude, north and south. So we know that we're at 28 degrees here on the bottom of our chart. That's 28 degrees, as you can see there, hopefully. And then this is 28:30. And then now we're going to use those long tick marks. Okay, remember those are 10-minute lines. So we're at 28:30. We're at 28:40. And then probably about halfway. So we're at 28:45. So that would be north, 28 degrees, 45 minutes. Okay, blue dot. Now we're going to do longitude, east and west. So we know that we're at 79 here, and here's 80, here's 79:30. So that's this line is 79:30. And we're going to go out, looks like about one tick mark, one large tick mark, which is a 10-minute mark. So we're at 79 degrees and 40 minutes. 79:30 plus 10, 40. 79 degrees, 40 minutes, and that's west, so that's a longitude. So that's how we find a spot on these charts. Again, we're doing it out here in the middle of the Atlantic, so it's easier to read. Same thing applies as you get into the busier part of the map, which is where we're headed next.
As we begin to look at airspace and charts, let's take a look at a graphic of the different classifications of airspace. You should have seen something like this before, and this is just a short review before we move on to an actual VFR sectional chart. The different classifications are Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and Golf. So as a brief review, remember that Class Bravo, or Class B, is at larger airports, Orlando, Miami, Chicago, Atlanta, etc. And it has several layers that widen out as the altitude increases, sort of like an upside-down wedding cake. Class C, or Charlie, is at medium-sized airports, and typically one or so fewer layers than Class Bravo. Class Delta is at even smaller airports, and classes Bravo, Charlie, and Delta will all have an air traffic control tower of some sort operating either 24 hours a day, or sometimes they're part-time towers. Class E can start from the surface, but not always. Typically it starts at about 700 feet above the surface. Class G, or uncontrolled airspace, takes up the rest, except for Class A, which doesn't start until 18,000 feet. We'll talk more about each of these when we look at an actual chart. Okay, so we're going to jump into these charts. rather than just give you definitions and show you them on the chart, I figured it would be helpful if we did a scenario-based question, and then we'll go through that and you'll see what's on the chart. So here's the first question. You're conducting a research on non-native invasive plants, and as part of your research you want to use a drone to capture images of an area located at north 28 degrees 05 minutes by west 80 degrees 50 minutes. The questions are, what is this airspace, or what airspace is this? And second, what restrictions or requirements are there to fly a mission at that location? So let's jump into the chart.
Okay, so now we're starting to get into our charts. As you can see, these charts get a little bit busy. You're going to find lots of information, and in further videos we'll go into some of the other parts of the chart. But for this, I wanted to give you a question based on a scenario to help you figure out reading the charts, not only just the charts, but determining what airspace that you'd be in. So if we go to our question, the very first thing that the question says or gives us is it gives us the location. It gives us north 28 degrees 05 minutes by west 80 degrees 50 minutes. So we're going to look at this. So first thing we're going to look at is our latitude, which is our up and down, our north and south, and then we'll look at our longitude, which is east and west or left and right. So the first one we're looking for is 28 degrees 05 minutes. So we know by looking at our chart that here is 28 degrees, that this line here on the bottom, that's 28 degrees. We also know that each one of these smaller tick marks on either scale is a 1 minute mark. So we're going to go 28 degrees and we're going to go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it'll put us somewhere right here in this name for this private airport of Forever, Florida. So it's going to be right in there someplace. Now we're going to work on our longitude, okay, or our east and west. And we know that we're looking for 80 degrees, 80 by 50 minutes. 80 degrees, 50 minutes. So if we're looking here at our line, we know that we've got on the bottom here, or over here on the right, we've got 80 degrees. We know that we've got 80 degrees, 30 minutes. And then we know that each one of these longer tick marks, again, is a 10-minute mark. So 80 degrees 30, 80 degrees 40, 80 degrees 50. So if we follow that straight up, and if we follow this straight across, that puts us right in this area right here, okay, by where it says radome, and specifically it's going to put us right around that small little square water feature, whatever that happens to be, some type of a pond perhaps. So now we know our location. So let's move on to the next part of the question. Now that we have our location, what airspace is that? So as we look at the chart in this whole area, we see, okay, we got an airport here. Well, that airport has a blue dotted line. That indicates it's Class Delta airspace. So we know that's Class Delta for the Melbourne International Airport. From there, if we look closer, we'll see there's a magenta line that is adjacent or contiguous with the Class Delta. And it's a magenta line that comes out and then down and then back. The magenta line dotted indicates Class E or Class Echo to the surface. So that connects to the Class Delta. More than likely the reasoning behind that is there's some type of an instrument approach procedure for manned aircraft that comes in from the west, and they put that airspace all the way down to the ground. So we know that it's Class E. Class E we also know is controlled airspace. So the next part of our question is, what restrictions or requirements are there to be able to fly our mission here? So knowing that it's controlled airspace, you cannot fly in controlled airspace without an FAA authorization. So there are a couple of ways to get that authorization, and we'll delve into that later on in other videos. But it's either LANC or it is an application to the FAA Drone Zone website. Either way, you're going to have an FAA authorization to be able to fly that mission inside this Class E or Class Echo area. For the University of Florida, when you submit your flight request to me, I'm going to be looking for, when I get these coordinates, I'm going to research these coordinates, I'm going to find their inside controlled airspace, and when I see that, I'm going to be looking for your FAA authorization number to accompany your flight request. So that gives you a little bit of quick idea on a scenario. We're going to do another one here in half a second.
Let's take a look at our next question. As an ag extension agent, you've been requested to fly a drone over a local grower's operation and evaluate the health of the crops. The location of the field is north 29 degrees 28 minutes by west 81 degrees 23 minutes. Again, questions are, what is this airspace, or where are you at, what airspace? And second, what concerns would you have to conduct a flight in this area?
So now we're on to our next question. Again, the question gives us coordinates, so we're going to find those coordinates. The first coordinate that we're looking for is 29 degrees, 28 minutes. 29 degrees, 28 minutes. If you look down here, we're zoomed out a little bit, and we'll zoom in for our actual location. But if you look down here in the bottom, you're going to see there's 29 degrees. So there's our 29 degree latitude line. So we need to go 29 degrees, 28 minutes. Well, if we look up the chart, we know that this line, which is the next dark line, is going to be 29 degrees, 30 minutes. So we'd have to come back 2. So 29, 29, 20, 29, 28. So it's going to put us right there, just underneath this line. All right. Now we also can see here is 81 degrees for our longitude. We need to go to 81 degrees, 23 minutes. So again, we got to look pretty close, but you'll see these longer tick marks. So there's a 10-minute mark, okay? And we keep coming out. Here's another 10-minute mark, so that's 20. And we go to 23, so we go another 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we come down 2. So that'll put us right here towards the, just a little bit to the right of this tower, which is indicated here. So we'll zoom in a little bit closer. Hopefully we will do it without shaking too much. Okay, so our actual location now is going to be right in this area near this tower. So we've located the area. Now let's look at our questions. What airspace is this? Well, let's look around. What have we got here? A couple of things should jump out at you. Obviously, airports are one thing to jump out. So are we in any airspace, controlled airspace for any of these airports? And if we're out here by this tower, well, the answer is no. We're outside. So here you have Flagler Executive, dotted blue line, Class Delta, and then you have Class Echo that extends out, no dotted lines, it's just shaded. That means it's Class Echo starts at 700 feet above the surface. Okay, so we're even outside of that. So we're in uncontrolled airspace, which is Class G as in Gulf. All right, Class Gulf uncontrolled airspace out here. All right, now you also may see some special use airspace, which we haven't gone over. You're going to see some of these other lines, these hash marked lines. Okay, so can anybody figure out what that is? It does have an indicator. All right, this is right here. It's A Alpha 293, and this is some type of a special use airspace. It says caution, high volume of flight training, surface to 4,000 feet, mean sea level, or MSL. So you know that you're in there, so okay, there might be some airplanes in here I need to look out for. So you need to watch your altitude. You can still fly in that area. You don't need any FAA authorizations to do that. But you do need to be aware of what's taking place in this area. Anything else that you can identify in this that might be an issue? One of those would be here, this VR1009 that you can see is this gray line. That is a military training route. Okay. So military training routes, you'll find them all over. Generally, you're not going to have an issue unless it happens to be some helicopters that are doing some very, very low flights. And then you can also be on the lookout for those. But the question states, what should you be concerned about here? And the answer is, okay, some other aircraft, whether that happens to be low-flying military aircraft on this training route, or whether that happens to be high volume of flight training, which would be other manned aircraft inside this area. A practice area for Embry-Riddle out here at Daytona Beach. They'll come out here and they'll practice. So that's what you had there. Pretty much other than that, you're good to go. You're flying an ag extension mission. You should be able to fly that mission, you know, a couple of 100 feet. You should be able to get what you need. Shouldn't be an issue. For me, when you send in your flight request, you can indicate in there that you're flying a mapping mission or a photography mission to determine crops and an altitude of whatever you decide is, you know, workable for your particular mission.